Welcome back to Trades and Trends. It has been a fantastic Friday, though not so much for the indexes. I'm your host, Kyle. Today's date is September 6th, 2024, and that is wrapping up this week. Looking forward to the next. S&P 500 was down another 2% today. Indexes really across the board are not doing well today at all. There's just about no category in the stock market that is performing well today. Lots of red everywhere, and we'll touch on some of the news that came out this morning that I believe was kind of causing most of that. So what we are looking forward to, though, is an upcoming Federal Reserve meeting. The FOMC is taking place September 17th to 18th, so we've got another 2 weeks or so to go with that. And that will finally be kind of the tell-all on where the Fed foresees the market going here in the near future. Of course, rate cut odds are now priced in at about 100% chance of happening. So for sure, it sounds like we can probably expect a rate cut. But what is up in the air at the moment is how much will the Fed be cutting by? That is still completely unknown. And that also makes this morning's news very relevant because unemployment was reported this morning. It was forecasted to be down 0.1%. at 4.2%, previously read at 4.3%, and it came out at 4.2%. So it was right there at what the forecasted levels were expected to be. The market rallied for just a little bit, and then we went on to do another pretty powerful slide like we had just a couple days ago. So why the drop, though? I mean, was that news not positive? Is it not good that our unemployment is coming back down versus going up? And I'm a little bit surprised by the numbers themselves, just because we were very recently looking at unemployment numbers that seem to almost be accelerating in growth upwards. And now they have just completely tapered off, even ticked back downwards just a smidge. Supposedly, some of the concern now is that there is some worry that the Federal Reserve, come their September meeting, now won't be cutting as much as they might have been planning to prior to this. Perhaps they were looking at a 0.5 to a 0.75% cut, and now they're only maybe evaluating the possibility of a 0.5 to 0.25% cut. With that, I don't have a lot of faith in this move to the downside and that we might be establishing lower lows here in the near future. If the data keeps coming out like this and showing that the job market is being resilient at the same time that inflation is coming down, well, I think that we could be looking at a rally before too long. So I am still adamant in that we need to just remain patient, continue to see how this plays out. Definitely waiting at least until the Federal Reserve has their meeting and makes their interest rate decision, and then we can start theorizing from there. Now, in other news, the S&P 500 did some rebalancing today. Dell, Palantir, Erie, Indemnity are now in the S&P 500. In fact, I didn't even realize that Dell was not in the S&P 500. So that's nice to see. American Airlines, unfortunately, and Etsy and a company called Biorad Laboratories they're out. So these rebalances take place from time to time, and it's always interesting to see who is getting kicked out and who they are having join a board. And usually there is a little bit of a positive reaction in share price to the news of companies coming in and going out. Dell share price popped up a little bit after hours. Obviously, though, it doesn't change any of the fundamentals or the performance of the company itself. Just that the news of it being now included in perhaps SPY and other large index funds is going to be beneficial to it in some sense, though. So another topic that I have not talked about in a while and I wanted to circle back to, and we do actually have some news for this today, is Yotta Bank. Now, if you've seen my videos in the past or are familiar with the Yotta Bank situation, basically all their customers' monies were just completely in a frozen status. People were trying to withdraw and take out their savings, and for some people this was their emergency savings. This was money that they were kind of experimenting with, maybe to try to make some additional income. There's a whole number of reasons for why people were storing their money with this company, but problems have ensued, and this started taking place all the way back in May. So I did a video on it in May, and I think I did another one late May, maybe early June, and I have not had an update since, but I have been keeping tabs on their update page. They updated their website to have kind of an ongoing log of changes and progress, and so there's some good news at the end of it. And I wanted to go over this with my viewers just so everybody can be on the up and up, and maybe you know somebody who's been affected or know somebody who's still trying to get their funds out, or maybe you were affected, who knows. But if you were, I'd love to hear your feedback on it and maybe some of your experience. So let's switch over to that. And I'll try to keep this somewhat short, but we're gonna start from the bottom and cover some of the topics that I may have already gone over previously. So what happened? On May 7th, we were notified that Lineage Bank, member FDIC, halted ACH payments for all Synapse brokerage accounts, and that Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC, would begin to process ACH transactions on behalf of Synapse brokerage. Yotta customers held accounts with Synapse brokerage. On the evening of May 11th, we were notified by Evolve that they never agreed to take on ACH processing and would be halting all payment processing that they are involved with effective immediately. So you may be able to start to see where the problem in here lied. These events have left Synapse brokerage without an ACH processor, and Evolve's decision to freeze cards is causing all card transactions to fail. So how does this impact their customers? Their customers' funds in the Synapse brokerage program are swept. I'm not sure if it's nightly or what their schedule is on that. Perhaps immediately. They may immediately be swept into accounts at a network of member FDIC banks. So we're not talking just one bank, but multiple banks. Funds held in these accounts are eligible for FDIC insurance, so that's good, and we'll talk about how that kind of backfired a little bit here shortly too. All programs that work with Synapse are impacted by this. ACH transfers and card transactions will not go through until banks restore their services. So what were they doing about it on May 19th? We understand the importance of this matter, and we are working around the clock to get ACH and card processing restored, which will enable customers to transact. Ultimately, it is up to Evolve, though, to restore card services, and Lineage or Evolve or another processing bank to provide ACH services. Somebody has to provide it, and Evolve is basically saying, hold on, it wasn't in the contract for us to provide this in the first place, so we're not going to do it. We want no part of that. We are in contact with the regulators to expedite a resolution, since this is obviously unacceptable. So in short, when you store your funds with Yotta, they immediately or nightly sweep those funds into partnered bank accounts, partnered FDIC insured bank accounts. Yotta themselves are not, as far as I understand, they are not a bank themselves. They are not storing your funds. So originally part of the problem was that, well, if the bank has failed, if Yotta has failed, then the FDIC should be stepping in. Well, technically, where the funds are stored, which is in member FDIC banks, those banks have not failed. Yotta and the transactionary process, or the ACH provider in between Yotta's platform and these member banks, is now no longer existent. But in theory, no bank has failed, so there's nothing for the insurance, the FDIC, to step in on. So it just became a matter of, well, they need to either individually restore customers' funds back to the customers, or they need to restore ACH services through Yotta and let people withdraw their funds and reaccess their funds that way. And so then as we scroll up through time and getting nearer and nearer to today, we can see a number of steps that they were taking to attempt to resolve this, which includes talking with members of Congress, to probably hiring teams of lawyers and financial experts, working with the member banks, getting the courts involved, working with staff members of FINRA. We can see there was even periods of no updates, which was probably not very reassuring. And then on June 28th, they recently learned of a cybersecurity breach impacting one of Synapse's partner banks, Evolve Bank and Trust, and Evolve is now roped back in on this problem. This breach resulted in unauthorized access to and leakage of records, such as account numbers and other personal information related to their fintech programs. We contacted Evolve Bank and Trust to obtain more information about the breach. its potential impact on Yotta platforms and users, and the remediation steps that they are taking. Evolve Bank and Trust has acknowledged these claims of a cyber incident and is investigating the situation. Evolve Bank and Trust further mentioned that they will provide us with detailed communication to share with end users. Now, not to speculate, but I would almost be curious if once Evolve Bank and Trust started to be named as being a part of some of the problem in this situation, that they might have inadvertently become a target by some black hat hackers or some people with some not good intentions. So a security breach took place, and unfortunately now not only do customers still have their assets frozen and they're unable to claim their money and get that transferred out of wherever it's being stored, but now they're also losing their privacy and their individual user information. No good. It just got worse. On 7/1, they were communicating with a senator, further updates, and I'm going to share this link down below so everybody can view in full the progress over the timeline. There was a while there during July where no updates were taking place at all. And then we get into August. And August is where things started to really change for the better. And really what started happening here is that they started to contact a number of customers depending on where their funds were being stored with which bank, and were able to start distributing funds and start sending instructions and taking back in instructions on where to send certain customers funds and what connecting banks that they can now transfer out to. So lots of good started happening there. And when I get all the way up to the top here, last update took place on September 4th. That was just here on Wednesday. An additional hearing in the Synapse 5 bankruptcy case was held on Friday, where the trustee discussed their most recent status report. Evolve Bank has stated that they expect its reconciliation to take 8 weeks from August 23rd, when their data collection was completed. So we're looking at potentially another 6 weeks or so before they expect to be fully redistributed to their customers. So huge numbers here though. To date, the following distributions have been made to end users of all fintech companies involved. AMG National Trust has distributed $109.2 million. Lineage Bank has distributed $49.2 million. And we can even look at their most recent status report if we are so inclined to. And we can see a timeline of distributions as they took place, from which bank in what amounts amongst what time periods. And we can come down here and we can see each individual bank: American Bank, Evolve Bank and Trust, Lineage Bank, AMG National Trust, and we can see how much that they have fully distributed. And I believe I saw in here somewhere, to date, they are at about 99% of total funds to have been paid out. So really positive things that we are seeing here. And I would expect that probably most people who were involved in this have probably been all the way redistributed and cashed back out. So that is some really positive news to have come from that. Now, I don't know what is ultimately happening with Yotta Bank. I don't know if they are going bankrupt from this, or I can't imagine that there is going to be a lot of interest and trust going forward, in that there won't be more little hiccups like this in the potential future. And I don't think we've had a lot of clarity yet around why this whole thing happened in the first place. I mean, we know that Evolve Bank and Trust, obviously, once it was handed over the responsibility of ACH deposits, said, hold on, we didn't agree to that. We're not doing that. But somewhere down the line, there was some miscommunication, or some fine print didn't get included in the contract. Something was not negotiated properly, and that was completely omitted out from their responsibilities, and then problems ensued. Like I said, if you know somebody who's been involved, maybe you've been involved, super curious to hear your feedback and your input on this. But just wanted to close that story that we started so long ago, and it has taken a while to play out, but Thankfully, it seems to have played out in the customer's best interest, and though it took some time, these companies did at least make a good faith effort to make right by their customers. So I think that's a wrap on this one. But thank you so much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you all very soon.